I know you've seen a ton of titles like this before, titles that promise some magic trick that will change your life. So I totally get why you might be skeptical about this video and think it's just a waste of time. But hear me out. I'm not asking for any likes or subs. Just focus on the video. What I'm about to share could seriously change your life. Although in today's age, we have access to a great deal of knowledge and useful tools that can help us improve our lives, most of us complain that we don't find much desire or motivation to work on the important things that can actually help us improve our lives. The strange thing is that some of the beneficial things you used to do easily and even felt some enjoyment in doing them, you now find difficult to do. Today's episode is very important because it focuses on a key reason why we lose the motivation to work on important tasks, which makes us feel that these tasks are difficult or boring. The biggest problem I'll face in today's video is that the people who need this video the most are often the ones who get bored quickly and will likely not finish watching it. So try your best to watch it in full. Forget about the comments for now and make the video full screen so you won't distract yourself with thumbnails and catchy titles that play on your curiosity and fast boredom. Let's begin today's video with a short story. There was an American celebrity from the entertainment industry who was obese, and the main reason for that was his strong love for unhealthy food, including fast food, fried foods, sweets, soft drinks, and others. His problem was that he couldn't commit to a healthy diet because, to him, healthy food was very boring, tasteless, and the idea of committing to it for the rest of his life was unbearable for him. However, he reached a level of obesity that made him decide to undergo a gastric bypass surgery as an attempt to get rid of the obesity that had begun to cause him many other diseases. His doctor told him, "Since we are going to perform the surgery, why not try one last attempt for a short time? Maybe it will prevent us from going for the surgery." The doctor told him that he would challenge him to stick to a tough diet, but only for 2 weeks, and he wouldn't need to stick to it for the rest of his life. In fact, it wasn't even feasible for him to stick to it for a long period. The system was that for 2 weeks, he would only eat boiled potatoes without any additions, not even salt. Of course, this is a very harsh system and will definitely help with weight loss, but weight loss wasn't the goal of this diet. The patient agreed to the challenge, especially since the period was limited, and the most important thing was that it might help him avoid surgery. After the 2 weeks, the first thing he tried to eat, other than the boiled potatoes, was a piece of boiled corn as well, without any additions. He described his feeling about the taste as though he was eating a piece of candy. He never thought that corn could have such a delicious taste. Suddenly, regular vegetables became delicious and enjoyable. The 2-week period wasn't about losing weight as much as it was about resetting his sense of taste. The problem was that this person had immersed himself in foods full of flavor enhancers, sugar, and other extreme additives that had made his brain no longer respond to the natural taste of healthy food. That's why he felt that healthy food was boring and tasteless. After this experience, he became completely convinced that he could live on a healthy diet and be happy and enjoy food. This helped him stick to a healthy eating plan, and he was able to lose weight without needing the surgery. We will return to this story later when we discuss the solution to the problem we're addressing today, but for now, let's move to another point. I believe most of us have heard of the dopamine hormone. Dopamine is responsible for the feeling of desire and motivation that drives you to perform any action that you expect to reward you in some way. Some people get confused and think that dopamine is the hormone that the brain releases after receiving a reward, which causes feelings of happiness and satisfaction. This is not entirely accurate. The main role of dopamine is in creating feelings of desire and motivation, not happiness and satisfaction. In reality, the brain releases dopamine even before receiving the reward. For example, if you're thirsty and you see a cup of water in front of you, your brain will release dopamine to motivate you to go to the cup and drink because it expects that drinking will lead to the reward of being quenched and relieving your thirst. The amount of dopamine your brain releases is linked to how quickly the reward can be obtained and how much effort is needed to achieve it. The faster you can obtain the reward and the less effort required, the greater the amount of dopamine released. This means you'll be more motivated and have a stronger desire to act in order to get the reward. Actions like eating, drinking, browsing YouTube, using social media, and playing video games all provide rewards quickly and with little effort. As soon as you begin the action, you receive the reward in the form of taste, entertainment, or excitement. On the other hand, actions like studying, working on a project, or exercising typically have delayed rewards in the future and require a lot of effort to achieve, so your brain releases less dopamine. Although it's supposed to be enough to start working, despite its low amount, the problem worsens for another reason. The body has a feature called homeostasis, which is the body's tendency to maintain balance. For example, when you're cold, your body shivers to generate heat and maintain your body temperature at an appropriate level. Similarly, when you're hot, your body releases sweat to cool down your body temperature. The state of arousal and desire that results from the release of a large amount of dopamine is considered by the brain to be an imbalanced state. So it tries to balance it through what is called tolerance. This is the process by which your body and mind accept or adapt to the new state, as though it were the normal state. For example, when an addict starts using drugs, the same dose that initially gave them euphoria and excitement eventually causes the body to try to reduce its effect so that it doesn't produce the same level of excitement. The addict then has to increase the dose to feel the same level of euphoria they experienced in the past. The same thing happens with dopamine. When the body finds that it is releasing large amounts of dopamine due to immersion in distractions, it tries to reduce its effect by lowering the sensitivity of what are called dopamine receptors. This results in two things. First, you may find yourself indulging more in these distractions to make up for the pleasure you've lost, just like an addict who increases the dose over time. Second, as a result of reducing the sensitivity of dopamine receptors, your sense of desire and motivation toward important tasks, like learning and exercising, becomes less than it originally was. This means that the negative effect is now compounded. In fact, in the advanced stages of any addiction, whether it's drug addiction, pornography, video games, or social media, the brain begins to completely favor actions that satisfy this addiction. These are the only actions for which dopamine is released, and dopamine is not released for any other actions. So much so that the addict, in order to satisfy their addiction, finds the motivation to do anything, no matter how difficult or dangerous. But at the same time, they find no motivation for any other action, no matter how simple, to the point of neglecting personal hygiene. But this is in the advanced stages. Of course, the problem exists for many of us to a lesser degree, but it's still enough to prevent us from achieving our goals and ambitions due to our inability to accomplish important tasks. So, the summary of the problem is as follows. Immersing ourselves in distracting actions that release large amounts of dopamine over time becomes a major reason for us losing motivation and desire to perform important and beneficial tasks. Just like the person who immersed himself in unhealthy eating full of flavor enhancers and additives. Over time, they lost their sense of taste for healthy food, and it became boring and tasteless to them. Now that we know the problem, let's present the solution. The proposed solution here is what is called dopamine fasting, or dopamine detox, or dopamine fast. Some people object to this name and prefer to call it stimulus control or managing stimuli, but regardless of the name, the idea is to fast or abstain for a specific period from unhelpful, distracting actions that cause the brain to release large amounts of dopamine. This fasting or abstinence will result in the brain creating a state of balance, and it will once again increase your sense of motivation and desire toward beneficial activities that release dopamine in smaller amounts. It's exactly like the person whose story we began the video with. What he did was abstain for a period from unhealthy food that had controlled his mind and sense of taste until his brain regained balance and he started enjoying normal, healthy food again. Now, let's go back to how to apply dopamine fasting. The goal is to set one day each week where you abstain from any enjoyable but unproductive activities. For example, on this day, you should avoid using your smartphone except for answering calls, avoid browsing social media, watching entertainment content, playing video games, eating fast food, sweets, or drinking sodas, and avoid snacking between meals. Stick to only your main meal at home, or eat just enough to satisfy your hunger. Of course, for things like drugs or pornography, we don't need to mention them because they are things that should be stopped permanently, not just one day a week. If you've reached an advanced stage of addiction, you should seek help from a specialist to quit them. After stopping all of this, don't be surprised if you feel bored. That's actually expected. It's required. What you need to do is learn to live with boredom for a while, instead of constantly escaping from it through distractions. Remember, during this day, you can keep yourself busy with the following. You can work on any required tasks, or learn something you've been putting off. You can also read any book you've been delaying, or start one if you haven't, or continue one if you already started. You can also meditate, exercise, or plan for the upcoming 3 months, for example, or do any useful task. The important thing is to avoid distractions and things you usually use to entertain yourself during this day. An important piece of advice here is that you should make any change in your environment that helps you stay committed. For example, you could install an app like FlipD on your phone and run it for 24 hours. This app will only allow you to use the phone for calls and maps. You won't be able to use social media apps or play games during the set time. Now, regarding the rest of the week, 2 things are required. First, try to avoid excessive engagement and distractions as much as possible. Distractions are allowed, but don't overdo them. Second, try to make distractions happen later in the day, as much as possible. This means after you've accomplished some of the important, beneficial tasks, you can use distractions as a reward for your hard work throughout the day. If you can commit to making some distractions a reward for working hard on what's beneficial, you're actually boosting your motivation to work on productive tasks, because in addition to the long-term reward of achieving achieving the beneficial tasks, you're also giving yourself a short-term reward. These rewards cause your brain to release more dopamine, as we explained, so the desire and motivation to work on them will be greater. The final ongoing advice is to keep trying. Don't expect great success the first time, especially since this is an important matter, and there are people who will wake up too late, shocked that their lives have been wasted on trivial things. Try not to be one of them.